My name is BarBar. I am 28-year-old. I loved him in silence, even when my heart was screaming. That is the truth I carried for a long time. I did not say it out loud, not to him, not to anyone. I held it inside, like a secret that was too beautiful and too painful to share. I loved him in a quiet way. The kind of love that grows in the dark, hoping no one will see it, hoping it will somehow survive. At first, it felt safe. It felt warm. It felt like home. Before him, my life was calm but empty. My days moved slowly, one after another, with no real color. I woke up, went to work, smiled at people, and came back to a quiet room. I told myself I was fine. I told myself this was enough. But inside, there was a soft loneliness that never left me. It followed me like a shadow, even on good days. I met him on an ordinary afternoon. Nothing special. No music. No dramatic moment. Just two people sharing the same space. Maybe it was at work. Or maybe it was a small cafe near the street where everyone goes but no one remembers. I don't remember the place clearly. What I remember is how he looked at me when I spoke. He listened. Not just with his ears, but with his eyes, with his silence. When I talked, he didn't rush me. He didn't interrupt. He made me feel like my words mattered. Like I mattered. In a world where everyone is always busy, always distracted, that feeling was rare. We started talking more. Simple conversations. About our days, our small problems, our quiet dreams. He didn't try to impress me. He didn't make big promises. He was just there, calm, kind, present. With him, I felt seen. The loneliness I carried for so long began to feel lighter. I found myself smiling more, laughing without thinking. Even silence felt comfortable when we were together. We could sit without speaking, and it didn't feel awkward. It felt peaceful. That was how love entered my life. Not loudly, not suddenly, but softly, like sunlight through a window. I didn't fall in love all at once. I fell in love slowly. It happened in small moments, in the way he remembered little things about me, in the way he noticed when I was tired, in the way he spoke my name, gently, like it meant something. There were no big words, no dramatic scenes. Just a growing feeling that my heart was no longer only mine. Sometimes, I wanted to ask questions. Questions about his life. About his past. About his future. But I didn't. I was afraid to break the quiet happiness we had. I told myself it was too early. I told myself not everything needs to be said. So I stayed quiet. Deep inside, a small voice whispered that something was missing. But I ignored it. Love has a way of making us brave in hope and weak in truth. The first signs were small. Easy to explain away. Sometimes he didn't answer my calls. Sometimes his messages were short, distant. Sometimes he would disappear for a day, then return like nothing had happened. When I asked, he always had a reason. He was busy. He was tired. He had things to deal with. I believed him. Or maybe I wanted to believe him. He never talked about the future. Not about us. Not about tomorrow. When I mentioned plans, he smiled but changed the subject. When I dreamed out loud, he stayed quiet. It felt like he was standing next to me, but always facing another direction. Still, when he was with me, he felt real. He felt kind. He felt like someone who cared, and that confused my heart. What I felt was strong. What I knew was unclear. I began to live between those two feelings. I noticed that I always went to him, but he never came fully to me. I noticed that I waited, while he decided. I noticed that I made space for him, while he kept parts of his life closed. But love made excuses for him. Love told me to be patient. Love told me that not everyone knows how to show their feelings. So I stayed. Then one day, the truth arrived. Not with anger. Not with shouting. It came quietly, like a slow wave that you see coming but cannot stop. I learned that he had someone else. Not a short story from the past. Not a memory he was trying to forget. Someone real. Someone waiting for him. Someone he belonged to in ways I never did. I remember the moment clearly. My body felt heavy. My chest felt tight. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, breathing slowly, trying to understand how something so warm could suddenly feel so cold. He didn't deny it. He didn't fight the truth. He explained it in a calm voice, as if he was talking about the weather. He said it was complicated. He said it didn't mean what I thought it meant. And I listened. I told myself stories to survive the pain. I told myself maybe he loved me differently. Maybe what we had was special. Maybe I was not like the other person in his life. Maybe I am different, I whispered to myself. That hope kept me alive, even as it slowly broke me. I looked at our memories and tried to protect them. I didn't want to see them as lies. I wanted to believe that love could grow anywhere, even in the wrong place. Even at the wrong time. But deep down, I knew. I knew that when night came, he did not come to me. I knew that when choices had to be made, I was never the choice. I knew that I was loving someone who could hold my hand but not my future. Still, my heart stayed. I loved him in silence. I smiled when it hurt. I pretended to be strong when I felt small. I told myself love was enough, even when it was slowly taking pieces of me away. And in that quiet pain, one truth became impossible to ignore. I loved him. Even when I knew I was not the one he went home to. After I learned the truth, I told myself I would leave. I said it in my mind many times. I said it in the shower, in the dark, when I could finally be honest with myself. I said it like a promise. Like a strong decision. But when the moment came, I didn't go. I stayed. At first, I stayed because I was still in love. I told myself, love is not always perfect. I told myself life is complicated. I told myself I was not weak, I was just human. But slowly, I understood something painful. I was not staying because of love. I was staying because I was afraid. Afraid of being alone again. Afraid of feeling empty again. Afraid that if I let him go, I would return to the quiet life I had before him, a life where no one looked at me like I mattered. So I stayed in the shadow. I became the secret. There is a special kind of humiliation in being someone's almost chosen, almost loved openly, almost enough. I didn't tell people about him. I didn't post photos. I didn't speak his name in the wrong places. I learned to smile and say, I'm fine, even when my chest felt heavy. We still had good moments. That was the hardest part. Sometimes he was kind. Sometimes he was warm. Sometimes he held my hand and looked at me like I was the only person in the world. And for a few minutes, I could forget everything. But then reality would return. A phone call he had to answer outside. A message he had to hide. A sudden excuse to leave. A weekend where he couldn't meet. Holidays where I was invisible. Nights when I stared at my ceiling, wondering where he was, and why my heart still hoped. Love used to feel like light. Now it felt like shame. I started to feel tired in my bones. Not just tired from work or life, but tired in my soul. I felt like I was carrying a weight no one could see. Every day I told myself, just one more time. Just a little longer. And every day, I lost something small inside me. I stopped recognizing myself. I became quiet in a different way. Not peaceful, quiet. Sad, quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when you don't want to hear your own thoughts. Then came the breaking point. It wasn't a big fight. There was no screaming, no dramatic scene. It was smaller than that. And somehow, it broke me more. One day, I was waiting for him. We had planned to meet. I had dressed carefully. Even though I pretended I didn't, I had bought something small for him, nothing expensive. Just a simple thing that said, I thought of you. I waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. I looked at my phone again and again, trying to stay calm, trying to stay reasonable. Then a message came. Not an apology, not an explanation, just a short line, "I can't come." Something came up. That was all. In that moment, I didn't feel anger. I felt something deeper. I felt invisible. I sat there with my gift in my bag, and suddenly I saw myself from the outside. A woman waiting for love that never arrives fully. A woman accepting less and calling it enough. A woman choosing pain because she is afraid of loneliness. And for the first time, I stopped blaming him, because the truth was simple. He had shown me who he was. He had shown me what he could give. And I had agreed to it. The betrayal was not only his, it was mine too. I betrayed my own heart. I betrayed my own worth. I whispered the words that finally felt true. I was fighting for love while losing myself. That sentence didn't sound poetic in my head. It sounded ugly, honest, heavy, like waking up from a long dream. That night, I went home and looked at myself in the mirror. My face looked normal, but my eyes didn't. My eyes looked tired. Like someone who had been holding back tears for years. I didn't want that life anymore. So I chose something I had not chosen in a long time. I chose myself. Walking away was not dramatic. It was quiet. I didn't plan a speech. I didn't try to make him feel guilty. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want him to chase me. I didn't want a movie ending. I just wanted peace. When we met again, my hands were shaking, but my voice was calm. I told him I couldn't do it anymore. I told him I deserved a love that was not hidden. A love that didn't make me feel like I was asking for too much just by asking for honesty. He looked surprised, then sad, then quiet. Maybe he said something like, "I care about you." Maybe he said, "Please don't go." Maybe he said, "It's complicated." But I didn't hold on to his words anymore. Because I finally understood. If someone truly chooses you, it is not complicated. They don't keep you in the shadows. They don't make you feel small. Leaving felt like stepping off a cliff. The fear was real. My heart was screaming again. But this time, I listened to it. I walked away, not because I stopped loving him, but because I started loving myself. The days after were hard. Loneliness returned, like an old visitor knocking on my door. At night, I reached for my phone without thinking. I wanted to message him. I wanted to hear his voice. I wanted to go back to what was familiar, even if it hurt. But I didn't. Instead, I sat with the pain. I let it exist. I cried when I needed to. I took slow walks. I ate food even when I had no appetite. I cleaned my room like I was cleaning my heart. I learned to breathe again without waiting for him. Some days felt lighter. Other days felt like I was drowning. But little by little, something changed. The loneliness was still there, but it felt different now. It was not the lonely feeling of being unwanted. It was the lonely feeling of healing. I began to forgive myself. Not quickly, not easily, but honestly. I forgave myself for staying too long, for hoping too much, for calling pain love, for being human, for wanting warmth in a cold world. And slowly, I stopped hating him too. Not because what he did was okay, but because hate kept him inside my heart, and I didn't want him living there anymore. I started to understand the lesson that love taught me in the hardest way. Love did not fail. I simply chose myself too late, but I still chose myself, and that mattered. Now, when I think about him, I don't feel the same sharp pain. I feel a quiet sadness, like a scar that reminds me of what I survived. I remember the warmth we had. I remember the moments that felt real. And I also remember the truth. I was never the one he went home to, but I am the one I go home to. And today, that is enough. Because sometimes love is not about staying. Sometimes love is about knowing when to leave.